Chapter 1930, The Return, 3, Enchanting led the group of ancient clan people after Ming Di, with the 8 tribe leaders and the rest following after them as well. The effeminate-looking youth was desecrating everything in his path outside the Temple of Shadows. The horde of undead clan soldiers barely lifted a hand before they were all annihilated like sacks of rotting meat. Xue Fu approached first. Knowing full well the strength of the youth, he didn't rush forward and instead looked solemnly at the arrogant boy in front of him. "Ask your holy lord to come out. I didn't get to fight her properly the last time and I want to test her strength properly today." The effeminate-looking youth raised his brows and demanded of Xue Fu. Xue Fu's face darkened and he laughed coldly. "Who do you think you are? Weren't you the one who was too afraid to fight our holy lord that day and ran away with your tail in between your legs? Are you here to seek your own death today?" The blatant insult seemed to hit a nerve, and the effeminate-looking youth narrowed his eyes as his gaze brushed past the cold young man behind him. Seeing that he was expressionless with his hands crossed around his chest, he declared, "I had something else I had to deal with that day." "Who said I ran? Is your holy lord too scared to face me today?" Just as Xue Fu was about to retort sarcastically, a huge black shadow rushed out from within the Temple of Shadows. Xue Fu couldn't help but feel delighted to see that figure. Where did this little brat come from? How dare he speak such big words in front of my Temple of Shadows? With a flourish of wings, Ming Di landed in front of Xue Fu, his red eyes scanning the ground filled with soldiers from the undead clan. "And who are you? I have no interest in wasting my time on you. Get the holy lord to come out right now." The effeminate-looking youth looked impatiently at the dragon in front of him. The only person he was concerned about in the entire Temple of Shadows was the Temple of Shadows, but he had nothing to fear since his senior brother was here today. Ming Di's eyes flashed. Seeing how the boy in front of it didn't recognize it at all, it was suddenly reminded that it had been sealed for over 10,000 years. At this moment, Enchanting had also arrived with the others in tow. This little brat dared to return. Little White Tiger muttered as it saw the youth once again killing everything in his path. Enchanting didn't rush to speak and instead looked at the youth and the stranger behind him. The man was a cold and handsome young man. Compared to the effeminate-looking youth, he seemed much calmer. But their clothes were similar and Enchanting guessed that he had probably been called to assist. No wonder the little rascal had dared to come back so quickly. He had found someone to help him. "Holy Lord of Shadows, I was caught up in something else the other day, but let's have a proper battle today. Hand over what I want if you lose," the effeminate-looking youth demanded again. The reactions of 8 tribe leaders as they saw the arrogant youth were vastly different from the reactions of the ancient clan leaders. What did this little brat come from? How dare he impersonate the Holy Lord? He's probably sick of living. A cold laugh ripped out from the demon tribe leader's lips. "And who are you?" "I was talking to the Holy Lord of Shadows." "You have no right to speak here," the effeminate-looking youth said. The demon tribe leader had never been treated with such ridicule before. As one of the 8 tribe leaders, everyone treated him with the utmost respect. It was time to teach the brat a lesson. With one great leap, the demon tribe leader rushed towards the effeminate-looking youth. Chapter 1931, Battle My Steed First, 1. The effeminate-looking youth didn't look remotely worried as the demon tribe leader rushed at him. He lifted his arm and shot a beam of cold light at the elder leader. The demon tribe leader panicked, not expecting the weak youth in front of him to attack with so much power. He had no time to react at all as the beam of light shot towards him. Just as the light was about to hit him, a small hand pushed the demon tribe leader to the side and he managed to escape the fatal attack. Ming Wang. The demon tribe leader looked at Ming Wang in surprise. Ming Wang looked solemnly at the effeminate youth who had once humiliated him. Another loser. I've already said that I'm not interested in wasting my time on you. Holy Lord of Shadows, if you insist on not attacking, I'm going to kill off every single person from the undead clan. The effeminate-looking youth didn't even give the demon tribe leader and Ming Wang a second glance, instead focusing all his attention on Enchanting. You're no match for him, Ming Wang told the demon tribe leader. The demon tribe leader wanted to retort, but fear still lingered in his heart at the thought of that young man's attack. He should consider himself lucky. If my powers aren't suppressed because I'm in the central mainland right now, there would be no place for his arrogance, the demon tribe leader said through clenched teeth. But he had to admit that his current strength was no match for this youth. Holy Lord, look at how arrogant this boy is. We implore the Holy Lord to not show mercy and end him. Seeing the effeminate-looking youth act so presumptuously in front of Enchanting, the ancient clan took this opportunity to fan the flames. Enchanting was speechless. This bunch of old foxes. The effeminate-looking youth's lips twisted as he looked at the ancient clans hiding behind the Holy Lord of Shadows. I was wondering how the ancient clans in the central mainland had all vanished just like that. To think that you all ran here to hide like the rats you are. Did you think that you would be safe if you hid behind the Holy Lord of Shadows? What a joke. You'll all be next after I deal with the Holy Lord of Shadows. You damned brat, you're not worthy to be compared with the Holy Lord. Empowered by Enchanting's presence and angered by the effeminate-looking youth's words, the ancient clans all shouted back at him. With your ability, you're not even qualified to carry the Holy Lord's shoes. Emboldened, the ancient clans continued scolding the youth. The effeminate-looking youth's expression was darkening as well. A hurricane suddenly rose from his feet, sweeping up the ground all around him as his eyes changed color. Are you all done? You bunch of trash, I'll make sure that none of you leave with your lives. I don't have time to deal with you now. Holy Lord of Shadows, do you dare to fight me? Enchanting looked expressionlessly at the angered youth. Meanwhile, the surrounding ancient clans and the 8 tribe leaders all turned to look at Enchanting. Still she remained silent. They were running their mouths so freely just now. To think there was not a peep from them now. Lifting her eyes lightly, Enchanting looked at the effeminate-looking youth and said, "You're not qualified enough for me to make a move." Her dismissive words made him stiffen as his expression darkened further. Are you sure you're not just scared? I see that the Holy Lord of Shadows is just a coward. I would only dirty my hands if I were to fight a person who ran from a battle. Chapter 1932, Battle My Steed First, 2. The face of the effeminate-looking youth turned extremely surly. It was obvious that the Holy Lord of Shadows was mocking him for being scared off earlier. You! Enchanting didn't wait for him to complete his sentence and only continued calmly, if you can win against my steed, I will give you another chance to challenge me. The moment Enchanting uttered those words, Ming Di, who had been suppressing his rage the whole time, finally emitted an earth-shattering roar. Our Holy Lord has no time to play with a little brat like you. Let me test your abilities first. Ming Di's eyes burned with an aggressive fire. He had been waiting for Enchanting to give him the go-ahead all this time. Are you insulting me? The effeminate-looking youth glanced at Ming Di before sneering. The undead clan and members of the ancient clans were completely dumbstruck by the youth's words. He's just a mere steed and he wants to be my opponent. Holy Lord of Shadows, you are really belittling me, aren't you? The effeminate-looking youth stated coldly. Steed. Ming Di narrowed his eyes. The people in the ancient clans all swallowed hard. Even the arrogant 8 tribe leaders stole discreet glimpses at the dangerous glint in Ming Di's gaze. They had seen people with a death wish before, but none as foolhardy as this youth. In the entire central mainland, this youth was the first person who dared to disregard Ming Di in such a bold manner. They saluted his bravery. Ming Di spoke, the Holy Lord has spoken. If you believe you can defeat me, then you will definitely be able to challenge the Holy Lord. If you are that confident, the Holy Lord will step up." The effeminate-looking youth was clearly still very doubtful of this mere steed, but he did not say anything further. He only turned toward the silent, grim-faced youth standing behind him. The grim-faced youth studied Ming Di. The two of them were still young while Ming Di had been locked up for over 10,000 years. As a result, unlike the other ancient clan folks, they had not heard of Ming Di's fearsome reputation. In their eyes, Ming Di was just the steed of the Holy Lord of Shadows. The grim-faced youth sized up Ming Di and a strange light flashed across his eyes. But he didn't say anything and just nodded at the effeminate-looking youth. Having gotten his senior brother's assent, the effeminate-looking youth spoke again. "All right then. I will honor the Holy Lord's wishes and play with your steed. But Holy Lord, let me make one thing clear, don't blame me if I accidentally kill your steed." The effeminate-looking youth's tone was full of arrogance. The 8 tribe leaders couldn't help breaking out in cold sweat for him. They secretly glanced at Ming Di, who was already narrowing his eyes once again. "Punk, you are truly gifted at seeking death." Enchanting had no idea how powerful Ming Di was. She just hoped he would be able to stop this youth. But now, it was the cold and grim-faced youth who was worrying her. He was clearly of a higher rank than the effeminate-looking youth. Otherwise, why would he seek the permission of that person? Ming Di lunged forward with a roar. His massive black wings covered the sky, but the effeminate-looking youth remained unmoved. He just stood there, waiting for the opportunity to quickly finish off this steed, and force the Holy Lord of Shadows to step in. "Brat, seeing that you have some abilities, I will let you make the first move," Ming Di offered grandly. A look of disdain crossed the effeminate-looking youth's face as he snorted. "I am afraid you cannot even withstand my move." Chapter 1933, Battle My Steed First. 3. No worries, I have a thick and tough hide. Ming Di's voice was tinged with amusement. That amused tone drifted into the ears of the 8 tribe leaders, making their hairs stand on end. How many years had passed since they had heard that eerie, smiling tone? The effeminate-looking youth clearly didn't think much of Ming Di. Leaping into the air, he conjured a huge dragon with his hands, before directing it straight at Ming Di. Ming Di remained standing steadily where he was, as he looked at the approaching dragon. In the next second, boom! The fire dragon crashed into Ming Di, sending sparks flying all over. The earth-shaking sound nearly shattered the eardrums of everyone present. The effeminate-looking youth smirked as he watched Ming Di being engulfed by the flames. It's so hot. I am nearly dying from the heat," a low voice suddenly sounded out from the blaze. The face of the effeminate-looking youth shifted. He watched as the flames were suddenly extinguished before his eyes and Ming Di emerged. A few tiny flames were still burning upon his black dragon scales. Lifting one claw, Ming Di blew out the lingering flames with a snort of its nostrils. The effeminate-looking youth was thunderstruck. The 8 tribe leaders nearly laughed out loud at the sight. Their faces turned red from the effort of suppressing their laughter. "Kid, you shouldn't play with fire. Were you trying to burn me to death?" Ming Di glanced at the effeminate-looking youth in provocation. The youth studied the jet-black Ming Di, but couldn't see if he was injured at all. He had wanted to kill Ming Di with just one blow as he was impatient to get this over with. Seeing that Ming Di was still standing and talking, the youth leaped into the air and burst into flames. In the blink of an eye, balls of fire rained down from the sky. The fireballs were the size of a human head and pounded hard against Ming Di's body. Ming Di was a large creature. It raised one limb to try and avoid the dense rain of fire, but to little success. As the fireballs pelted him relentlessly, Ming Di cried out as if in great pain. Ah, painful, so painful, Ming Di was crying out, but his arm only moved in a half-hearted manner. The effeminate-looking youth smirked as he watched the wailing Ming Di. He didn't realize how the 8 tribe leaders were already staring at him with pity. By the side, Enchanting was astounded by the sight of Ming Di, who looked as if he had no intention of retaliating. But observing the smile on the effeminate-looking youth, she suddenly realized what was happening. Just as Enchanting seemed to have understood something, a layer of frost covered Ming Di's body. Enchanting had seen this move before. It was the very move that had defeated Ming Wang. In the blink of an eye, Ming Di's massive body was encased in a layer of ice. The effeminate-looking youth smiled deepened as he gazed at the trapped Ming Di. So it seems that the steed of the Holy Lord of Shadows is so mediocre. He patted the layer of ice. You've trapped me in a layer of ice, Ming Di said. The effeminate-looking youth lifted his chin. Don't worry, I will end your suffering very soon. Don't blame me after you die. Just blame the Holy Lord for sending you to your death. You want to kill me? Ming Di asked in an incredulous tone. Of course. A murderous glint flashed across the eyes of the youth. He patted the layer of ice again and icicles suddenly shot out and pierced all over Ming Di. Chapter 1934, A Crushing Defeat. 1. Panic flashed past Ming Di's eyes the moment the icicles penetrated his body. He appeared to be in great pain. A venomous smile appeared on the face of the effeminate-looking youth. He stared fixedly at Ming Di, who was in apparent agony. Ming Di widened his eyes. With a sudden shift in his gaze, he opened his massive jaws slightly. So painful. Ming Di's voice was completely devoid of any pain. As his jaws moved, the layer of ice encasing him suddenly cracked. Before the effeminate-looking youth could react, the layer of ice shattered and fell to the ground in pieces. The icicles failed to penetrate even half an inch into Ming Di's dragon scales. All the icicles looked like they had been grounded down, leaving only half the original length behind. The effeminate-looking youth's smile also broke along with the remnants of ice. As understanding slowly dawned upon him, he widened his eyes and stared at the completely unharmed Ming Di. How is that possible, really? So painful. Ming Di shrugged and the remaining ice shards on its body fell to the ground. Those blood-red eyes were half closed in a lazy manner filled with indolence. Although the effeminate-looking youth was a fool, it was only now that he finally understood what had happened. You tricked me. He gritted his teeth as he glared at Ming Di. So what? I'm going to kill you. The effeminate-looking youth hollered in rage. With that, he burst into raging flames and his eyes were now completely silver in color. He looked like a demon incarnate. As Enchanting observed the changes, she could clearly feel the aura of the youth increase over 2 times. Holy Lord, this youngster's aura feels off. The demon tribe leader had acute senses and felt the changes too. Powerful practitioners had their secret ultimate move. They would break through their own boundaries when forced into a desperate corner. But this effeminate-looking youth gave off a completely different vibe. The energy felt incompatible with his body, as if he was not using his own power. Enchanting was also able to detect the striking change. But her attention was not on that effeminate-looking youth. Instead, she was discreetly observing the grim-faced youth behind. That youth had maintained a neutral expression the whole time while Ming Di was playing a trick on his partner. He had remained impassive even when he saw that Ming Di was unharmed. It was like, he already realized Ming Di was just fooling his partner. Meanwhile, the skin of the effeminate-looking youth had turned a sickly shade of white. The blood vessels under his skin could be clearly seen, making it look like a dense network of black lines had spread throughout his body. With a bellow of rage, the effeminate-looking youth charged toward Ming Di. Ming Di stood there calmly, before spreading his black wings slightly. 2 black tornadoes spun out from his wings toward the youth. The moment the tornadoes appeared, the grim-faced youth shifted. A beam of cold light shot out before the eyes of the crowd. Boom! The beam of light collided with the tornadoes. The surrounding earth felt like it would be shattered by the resulting energy. "Senior brother, you didn't have to help me. I can deal with this." The effeminate-looking youth didn't expect his senior brother to make a move. For a moment, he felt somewhat humiliated. After all, he had invited his senior brother to deal with the Holy Lord of Shadows. How could he have his senior brother step in against a mere steed? Chapter 1935, A Crushing Defeat. 2. The Holy Lord of Shadows had yet to make any moves. It would be a great loss of face to him if he had to rely on his senior brother when he was just battling her mere steed. The effeminate-looking youth wanted to speak again, but the grim-faced youth slapped him right across the face. "Fool, are you still unable to see the vast disparity between your power and that of the demon dragon?" The face of the effeminate-looking youth turned pale, but he didn't dare to retort. The grim-faced youth glanced past Ming Di to land on Enchanting. He continued in a low voice. "Instead of wasting time, you should finish off this demon dragon with me. The Holy Lord of Shadows is our true target." Not daring to say another word, the effeminate-looking youth immediately nodded. "Oh. 2 of you at once. That's even better." The fire in Ming Di's eyes burned even brighter at the sight of another opponent. The leaders of the ancient clans couldn't help feeling rather nervous at the thought of the other youth joining the battle. "Holy Lord, is it really fine to let Ming Di handle this battle alone?" They had experienced the power of the effeminate-looking youth. And this second youth was clearly even stronger. Would Ming Di be able to cope? The corners of Enchanting twitched imperceptibly as she gazed at the anxious ancient clan members. "That's easy for you to say. Go ahead and help Ming Di if you can. Who are you doubting?" "That is Ming Di you're talking about." The demon tribe leader snorted coldly. The ancient clan leaders instantly retreated. They did not dare to argue with the demon tribe leader. In the end, they couldn't even defeat that effeminate-looking youth, not to mention the other one. Ming Di gazed at the 2 youths standing before him. He appeared to have no intention of making the first move. The 2 youths exchanged a look and immediately went into full battle stances. In the blink of an eye, the aura of the effeminate-looking youth surged again. His eyes were filled with a cold, harsh light while the flames around his body morphed into a massive burning Buddha figure. What kind of skill is that?" The ancient clan leaders widened their eyes in disbelief at the sight of that flaming Buddha figure. They had never witnessed such a strange move. The youth leaped into the air and merged into the flaming Buddha figure. A huge orange fire also appeared behind the grim-faced youth, which morphed into a gigantic flying dragon. His dragon was twice the size of Ming Di. The raging flames soared high into the sky and the powerful aura was so oppressive that the ancient clan folks found it difficult to breathe. What kind of powerful force was this? The ancient clan members at present were all elite practitioners in the central mainland. But now, as mere observers on this battlefield, they were already having trouble breathing from the mighty aura radiated by those 2 youths. Enchanting also felt her chest grow heavy. Luckily she had recently risen to the Paragon level. If she was still at the Heavenly Venerate level, she would likely have exposed her true identity. As such, Enchanting and the 8 tribe leaders were powerful enough to withstand the aura. But those soldiers of the undead clan were already collapsing from the powerful energy. One by one, they fell to the ground in spasms, their bones clattering non-stop. The aura of those 2 youths was enough to shatter the bones of the undead. A sliver of impatience surfaced in Ming Di's eyes as he gazed at the flaming Buddha figure and flying dragon. And I thought you guys were going to be interesting, boring. Ming Di suddenly opened its jaws wide and gave an earth-shattering roar. Chapter 1936, A Crushing Defeat, 3, Roar. The flaming Buddha and flying dragon figures were instantly extinguished by Ming Di's powerful roar. At the same time, the two youths, who had merged into their flaming figures, plummeted straight down into the ground. Blood spurted out of their mouths at the moment of impact. Before they could even try to struggle to get up, a massive black shadow suddenly appeared before them. Ah! Terrible shrieks resonated across the otherwise silent battlefield. Ming Di had driven two sharp claws into their abdomens and pinned them to the ground. Fresh blood poured out of their wounds and dyed the earth beneath them a deep red. Punks, you two have provoked the wrong people. Ming Di gazed down imperiously at the two youths. It was as though he was looking down at two tiny ants. The effeminate-looking youth continued to vomit blood and his face turned increasingly pale as he stared at Ming Di in disbelief. It was impossible. He couldn't believe the fact that he hadn't been able to withstand even a single blow from Ming Di. How many ancient clan people had perished in his hands? Countless powerful practitioners had died in the face of his mighty power. But now, the effeminate-looking youth finally understood the taste of fear. This demon dragon was not something they could even dream of defending against. All his aura vanished without a trace at this moment. The ancient clan members, who had been gasping from the overwhelming aura, were now staring dumbfounded at Ming Di. They had been so fearful of those two youths, but the demon dragon was now stepping on them like they were insignificant little ants. If they hadn't witnessed it with their own eyes, they would never have believed the wide disparity in power. As they turned instinctively toward Enchanting, their eyes were full of awe and respect. The Holy Lord of Shadows had disappeared for 10,000 years. Those of them in Central Mainland had nearly forgotten the fear that the Holy Lord used to inspire. The Holy Lord is truly great. Those youths were indeed no match for the Holy Lord. One of the ancient clan leaders discreetly wiped off his cold sweat as he addressed Enchanting with utmost respect. Enchanting, was this demon dragon that powerful? No wonder the Holy Lord was unwilling to step in. They were unworthy. Finally snapping out of their daze, the other ancient clan folks also started to laud Enchanting. Enchanting cast a mild look in their direction but otherwise remained silent. Inwardly, she felt that she had gained yet another layer of understanding of just how formidable Ming Di and the Holy Lord of Shadows were. No wonder the Holy Lord of Shadows had been touted as the most powerful being in Central Mainland. Just Ming Di alone was enough to destroy a good number of the elite practitioners in Central Mainland. Now that Ming Di had overcome those two youths, Enchanting wanted to get more information from them. She had a feeling that there was a greater power behind these two youths. Otherwise, given their young age, how could these two youngsters possibly know so much? Just as Ming Di was prepared to swallow them both, Enchanting spoke up. I want them alive. Ming Di looked very unhappy, but he still shut his jaws. The grim-faced youth saw that they were no match for Ming Di. He started gathering his energy again, and just as everyone thought he was going to make a last-ditch attempt to fight back, he suddenly turned and directed his attack on the dying, effeminate-looking youth. The effeminate-looking youth never imagined that he would die at the hands of his own people. He died with his eyes wide open as he choked on his final breath. Chapter 1937, The Mastermind Behind It All, 1. You still dare to resist? Ming Di was enraged. How dare this fellow kill off its prey right? A light flashed across the eyes of the grim-faced youth as he watched his partner draw his last breath. As Ming Di raged on, the youth suddenly dug his own hands into his chest and tore it apart. He moved so quickly that Enchanting could not react in time. Did he go mad? The ancient clan leaders were all bewildered. But the moment that youth tore open his own chest, a nearly imperceptible wisp of smoke suddenly flew out from his heart. The wisp of smoke moved very quickly and disappeared within the blink of an eye. Trying to escape. Ming-Di narrowed its eyes. Opening his jaws wide, he inhaled deeply. With one powerful intake of breath, Ming-Di sucked the dissipating smoke right into its belly. Enchanting wanted to stop him but could only stare on as Ming-Di's throat bobbed up and down. Oh no, he already swallowed it. Stupid little bug. Ming-Di snorted coldly. Lifting its claws, it tossed the two limp corpses across the ground. Enchanting felt a headache coming on. That grim-faced youth was clearly trying to eliminate his partner and escape, to prevent themselves from being interrogated. Ming-Di didn't let him escape, but the youth still managed to achieve his goal. Go and check if there are any clues on their bodies. Enchanting suppressed the exasperation she was feeling. This Ming-Di was very powerful, but its character could only be described by one word: impulsive. With the undead clan in tow, Ming Wang went forward to investigate the bodies of the two youths. They discovered some random Dharma artifacts and a fragment of the spirit of chaos in their space rings. Enchanting's heart quivered when she accepted the spirit of chaos fragment from Ming Wang. The spirit of chaos fragment was palm-sized, no different from any ordinary-looking black metal. But holding it in her hand, Enchanting felt no weight at all. It was as if this fragment didn't exist. The ancient clan members felt very envious when they saw that Enchanting had discovered a fragment of the spirit of chaos. It must be pointed out that each of the ancient clans owned just one fragment of the spirit of chaos, and everyone would wish to possess more pieces. But at present, the ancient clan members wisely kept quiet. They silently acquiesced to the fact that this fragment belonged to the Temple of Shadows. After personally witnessing Ming-Di's power, no one would dare to make an enemy of the Temple of Shadows unless they were insane. It was Enchanting's first time seeing the spirit of chaos. She had spent a long time trying to find the fragment belonging to the Holy Lord of Shadows but failed to locate it. Despite being very curious, Enchanting had to pretend to be nonchalant. She just gave it a few casual looks before placing it into her space ring. Holy Lord, we couldn't find any accessories on the bodies, but we did find a sort of symbol. Xue Fu stepped forward to report. Oh, what symbol? Enchanting asked. Xue Fu had his men drag over the bodies of the youths. Both youths had a palm-sized circular symbol tattooed in the middle of their backs. The symbol did not look familiar. Enchanting had never seen such a symbol before. Do any of you recognize this symbol? Enchanting looked toward the ancient clan members and the 8 tribe leaders. The 8 tribe leaders stepped forward to take a look. But they were likewise puzzled and shook their heads before retreating to the side. The ancient clan members also took a look, but none of them had seen such a symbol before either. Chapter 1938, The Mastermind Behind It All. 2. No one recognized the symbol. Yet another lead had come to a dead end. Enchanting gave an inward sigh. Just as she was about to order her men to look over the bodies again, one of the ancient clan elders suddenly spoke up. Holy Lord, this symbol looks very strange. Enchanting was taken aback. Speak. The elder didn't know how to explain it. Instead, he copied the symbol on a piece of paper, before adding a few strokes to the drawing. As the elder added more strokes, the faces of the crowd changed. Isn't this the family crest of the ancient Yu clan? One of the clan leaders widened his eyes in astonishment after the elder finished his drawing. That's right. I initially found the symbol rather familiar, but couldn't understand why. But then I suddenly realized that this symbol is quite similar to the family crest of the ancient Yu clan, the elder explained. I heard before that the ancient Yu clan secretly groomed a batch of kamikaze soldiers. They were all exemplary youths selected from the various branches of the ancient Yu clan. The youths were brought to an unknown place for special training. Even their own parents don't know where they were taken. Another ancient clan leader frowned as he spoke. It was common knowledge that the various ancient clans would secretly cultivate talented members of their own. Most of this training was done in secret, and they would be put into service for the family clan after their training was completed. Most of the ancient clans would mark those youths with a special symbol during training, which also contained a curse. The youth would suffer a massive counterforce if he tried to betray the clan. After all, the ancient clans spent massive amounts of time and effort in grooming those youths. It would be a great loss to them if the youth decided to betray them. Don't tell me that those two youths were kamikaze soldiers groomed by the ancient Yu clan. The ancient Yu clan wanted to rob us of our spirit of chaos fragments. Everyone was stunned by this conjecture. How could that be? How could the ancient Yu clan have groomed such powerful practitioners? The powers of the various ancient clans were more or less equivalent to each other. It was incomprehensible to them that the ancient Yu clan was able to groom such devastatingly formidable practitioners. Moreover, those youths were still very young, looking to be in their early teens. Even the most gifted child would not be able to attain such great powers within such a short period of time. A furious discussion broke out amongst the crowd. Only Enchanting remained quietly pensive. Ancient Yu clan. Others might not believe that the ancient Yu clan could become so powerful in such a short period. But Enchanting knew very well that it was possible. This was simply because of little Yu Yun. The ancient Yu clan had kidnapped little Yu Yun in the first mainland. And little Yu Yun's spiritual abode was exceedingly powerful. Linking the strange things occurring in the ancient Yu clan in central mainland recently, plus the symbols on these two youths, Enchanting could more or less confirm that the ancient Yu clan was behind it all. No need to guess anymore. Enchanting suddenly spoke out. Holy Lord. The crowd stared at Enchanting in confusion. The ancient Yu clan is behind all of this. But, many of the ancient clan members were not convinced. Enchanting cut them off and continued. Before you say anything, you should first think carefully about the recent actions of the ancient Yu clan. Chapter 1939, The Mastermind Behind It All, 3, Enchanting's words sent them all into silence. It was true that the ancient Yu clan had been acting differently lately. They hadn't attended the previous martial arts championship, even though the ancient Yu clan were always trying their best to come on top. They had been too indifferent this time. Furthermore, they had been taking rather big actions lately, acting arrogantly on the central mainland, which rubbed some of the other ancient clans the wrong way. But then they realized that the power of the ancient Yu clan had gotten stronger than before. These had all happened gradually over time, which was why none of them had noticed the connection between the events. As for the current massacres of the ancient clans that were occurring, there had been no news from the ancient Yu clan at all. Some of the ancient clans closer to them had wanted to warn them but had received no reply at all. In fact, they had not received any news about the ancient Yu clan being attacked either. Combined with the fact that the power of the ancient Yu clan had greatly increased previously, they couldn't help but suspect whether the mastermind of all this was the ancient Yu clan. Could it really be the ancient Yu clan? Damn it, I knew that those old scoundrels were up to no good. I treated them as madmen when they were acting so arrogantly on the central mainland. With Enchanting's words, they finally strung together the hints that they had missed out previously. But this only made them panic even more. Even in the past, the ancient Yu clan's audacious ambition had never been lacking. If they were to talk about ambition, few people on the central mainland could beat the ancient Yu clan. No wonder Domain Monarch Jiang was the first to go. The ancient Yu clan had already been eyeing the title of domain monarch for the longest time. They had challenged them multiple times previously already, so if they were to make a move, the first they would attack would definitely be the one most at odds with them. Yi Qingtang's heart sank as she heard this. The ancient clan people all started chattering among themselves, all of them wanting nothing more than to deal with the ancient Yu clan immediately. But they all knew that they were no match for them at all. After all, they had sent out 2 youths who had wiped out many of the ancient clans with barely any effort. Who knew how strong the ancient Yu clan was now? Yi Qingtang had her own thoughts and didn't want to spend any more time guessing with them here, so she sent them back to rest first. The ancient clan people now followed Yi Qingtang's every word obediently and didn't dare waste any time ushering Yi Qingtang back into the Temple of Shadows. Likewise, they also didn't dare take one step out of the Temple of Shadows. Now that they knew who their opponent was, how would they dare leave this haven? The ancient clans who had disagreements with the ancient Yu clan were all fearful now. They quickly sent messages back to their clan to arrange for their transfer. Then they hid in the Temple of Shadows with the elite members of their clan and did not dare to step out at all. All their hope was now placed on the Temple of Shadows. They were all clear on the fact that apart from the Holy Lord of Shadows, none of them was a match for the ancient Yu clan. As the news spread, more and more ancient clan came to the Temple of Shadows to seek protection. Soon enough, the Temple of Shadows transformed into a center of refuge. Chapter 1940, Ancient Yu Clan, 1, somewhere hidden in the valleys of the central mainland. A white-haired old man was standing in a huge pavilion. As he lifted his eyes slightly, his gaze fell on the wall of the pavilion. There were many crystal balls crammed onto the wall, all of them glowing from the inside. Suddenly, without a warning, 2 crystal balls split open and shattered onto the floor. The gaze of the old man changed and a middle-aged man guarding outside rushed in. "You Feng and you choose crystal balls shattered." The middle-aged man frowned as he looked at the 2 shattered crystal balls. The old man's gaze swept over the 2 crystal balls and he said solemnly, "Where did they go?" The middle-aged man thought for a moment before saying, Yu Feng had been following orders obediently, obtaining the spirit of chaos fragments from the ancient clans. But he seemed to have suffered some humiliation at the Temple of Shadows and went to find Yu Chu after he came back. Before the middle-aged man finished speaking, the old man retracted his gaze. The middle-aged man said, "These life pearls are the source of their lives. Since they are broken, does this mean that at the Temple of Shadows, they died there?" the old man said lightly. The middle-aged man froze before understanding what the old man said. If their life source had shattered, it could only mean that they were no longer alive. "Are you going to send anyone else to continue the mission since they're dead?" The old man nodded slightly. He lifted his arm to point out 2 other crystal balls and said, "Let them go." Yes, the middle-aged man accepted the order but said hesitantly, "What about the Temple of Shadows?" The old man had both his hands behind his back as he turned to step out of the pavilion. The Holy Lord of Shadows used to exist on the mainland. If she has truly returned, her strength is not to be underestimated. Our main goal is to collect the spirit of chaos fragments from the ancient clan. We are not going to deal with the Holy Lord of Shadows at this stage. But I've heard that many ancient clans have already gone to the Temple of Shadows for protection, the middle-aged man said. The old man narrowed his eyes slightly and walked deeper into the valley. In front of him was a huge palace. The gates of the palace were slightly ajar. It was pitch black inside the palace and there was no movement at all. Suddenly, a pair of glowing silver eyes appeared through the gap between the gates. It was looking outside the palace. The old man narrowed his eyes further and spoke to the middle-aged man behind him. "It doesn't matter. It won't be too late even if we deal with the Temple of Shadows after collecting the spirit of chaos fragments from the other ancient clans on the mainland. We have nothing to fear about the ancient clans." If anything, now that they've all gathered at the Temple of Shadows, it saves us the trouble of having to search for them. Yes. The middle-aged man understood his intentions. They didn't have to deal with the Temple of Shadows now. But he asked again after some hesitation, how are we going to deal with the elder on the east side? Deal with him? The old man laughed slightly and said, well, spare their lives if they understand what's going on. But, the old man paused for a while before saying, they are bound to find out about what happened to the domain monarch and the Jiang family. Remember, we have to collect all the fragments of the spirit of chaos. Not one piece can be missing. Yes. Having received his orders, the middle-aged retreated before rushing to the east side of the valley. Chapter 1941, Ancient Yu Clan, 2, there were a few pavilions over there. The middle-aged man went forward and saw a lady standing at the entrance of one of the pavilions. She looked like she was pondering something. Somewhat startled by the sight of the middle-aged man, she took a quick step forward. Warden. The middle-aged man maintained his cold expression, completely devoid of the earlier respect he had shown the elders. He glanced impatiently at the lady. Jiang Qin, did you manage to recall if the Jiang family had any more hiding places in the mainland? The lady standing outside the pavilion was indeed Jiang Qin of the Jiang family. She had already lost the arrogance she exuded during her days in the Jiang family. She gazed respectfully and timidly at the middle-aged man. I have already written down all the estates owned by the Jiang family, and handed the list over to you. We have gone to all those places but could not find any traces of the domain monarch. The middle-aged man frowned impatiently. Jiang Qin looked increasingly grim. Jiang Qin, if Tuoba Yao had not been wise enough to jump ship to our ancient Yu clan, you would have all already died when we destroyed the Jiang family. I will give you another 2 days. If you cannot provide any useful leads by then, the middle-aged man didn't complete his sentence. But the threat in his tone was evident. Without waiting for Jiang Qin to respond, the middle-aged man turned and left, leaving Jiang Qin standing there alone, her face pallid with fear. After the middle-aged man left, the door behind Jiang Qin slowly opened. Yi Yu and Yi Sun peeked out cautiously from behind the door. Aunt Qin, Yi Yu looked at the grim-looking Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin snapped out of her trance. Aunt Qin, did the Jiang family really own only those few estates? Have you given it careful thought? The ancient Yu clan is so powerful. Even the Jiang family was not spared. If they wanted our lives, I am afraid. Yi Yu bit her lips as she stared at Jiang Qin with deep fear in her eyes. Jiang Qin's originally grim face turned an even paler shade of white. I know. I already told them everything. The moment we decided to jump ship to the ancient Yu clan, I already planned to serve them wholeheartedly. I even told them about the secret tunnels in the compound for their first attack on the Jiang family. Jiang Qin furrowed her brows. No one could ever imagine that there was a traitor in the Jiang family who led to their demise. And this traitor was the domain monarch's biological daughter and granddaughters. Now that the ancient Yu clan was so powerful and getting exponentially stronger by the day, the two clans were already long at odds with each other. After Tuoba Yao got news of Jiang Qin's punishment, he had pleaded with the domain monarch to let her out. But the domain monarch had refused. As a result, Tuoba Yao had secretly contacted the ancient Yu clan. Knowing that the domain monarch was displeased with Jiang Qin, the couple had shrewdly decided to jump ship over to the ancient Yu clan. And helping the ancient Yu clan to destroy the Jiang family, this was Jiang Qin's great present to the ancient Yu clan. A show of her loyalty. But Jiang Qin had been imprisoned then and could not transmit information. The Yi family was actually the one who had opened the doors of the Jiang family for the ancient Yu clan. Now that the Jiang family had been destroyed, the domain monarch had fled with a group of family members after the major battle. Jiang Qin, Yi Yu and the rest had immediately sought protection under the ancient Yu clan. Aunt Qin, I know you have tried your best, but you saw clearly what the ancient Yu clan wants. Yi Yu pursed her lips. Jiang Qin's face became very grave. Let me see if I can think of other solutions. Chapter 1942, Ancient Yu Clan, 3, Aunt Qin, I know you are feeling very guilty. But now that things have progressed to this stage, we are already at the point of no return. If grandfather knows, we betrayed the Jiang family. I am afraid that, Yi Yu didn't continue. Jiang Qin's heart gave a heavy thump. I know. Yi Yu, go back and rest first. Jiang Qin patted Yi Yu on the shoulder before turning to leave. Yi Yu looked at Jiang Qin's departing profile. A cold smile took over the subservient and worried look on her face. In contrast, Yi Sun appeared very despondent. How could she not know how heartless Yi Yu was? Yi Yu was already like this when in the Yi family. But after personally witnessing Yi Yu cause the demise of the entire Jiang family without an ounce of regret, Yi Sun was now feeling increasingly frantic. Yi Sun knew very well that Jiang Qin treated Yi Yu as her own daughter. But Yi Yu did not reciprocate the same feelings. Sun, come with me to find the warden of the ancient Yu clan. Yi Yu suddenly spoke up after Jiang Qin left. Sister Yu, why are you seeking out the warden? Yi Sun was surprised. Jiang Qin might not be able to find the domain monarch and the rest of the Jiang family. If this drags on, the ancient Yu clan will be very displeased with us. Yi Yu narrowed her eyes. Sister Yu, you have another solution. Yi Sun looked at Yi Yu. Yi Yu smiled but kept silent. She just went to find the ancient Yu clan warden with Yi Sun in tow. Meanwhile, quite a large number of the ancient clan members had gathered at the Temple of Shadows. News of the ancient Yu clan being the mastermind had spread quietly across the various ancient clans. Thereafter, an increasing number of people sought protection under the temple. The 8 tribe leaders were very unhappy about this. But they had no choice but to maintain their silence, as Yi Qingtang didn't chase those folks off. Yi Qingtang allowed the various clan members to stay on at the temple, but not without putting them to task. The Temple of Shadows was very powerful, but it would be even stronger with the gathered forces of the various ancient clans. Making use of the opportunity, Yi Qingtang instructed the clan leaders to discreetly make use of their connections to investigate the ancient Yu clan. Yi Qingtang knew the reason behind the ancient Yu clan's sudden increase in power. But she had no idea just how powerful the clan was now. She had to know, as a result, she needed to tap into the informant network of the various ancient clans. At the same time, she also hinted for the clan members to go investigate the clans who had been massacred, to see if there were any further news on them. Especially the domain monarch's Jiang clan. It appears that the ancient Yu clan has no intention of attacking the Temple of Shadows in the near future. Little White Tiger was sprawled across Yi Qingtang's knee. The entire Temple of Shadows had gone on high alert since the death of those 2 youths. But after 2 weeks of waiting, there was still no news of any impending attack. It's only a matter of time before they come after us. From the intelligence gathered by the various ancient clans, they are still robbing others of the spirit of chaos fragments. They are not attacking the Temple of Shadows now as they are leaving us to the last. Yi Qingtang was no fool. She could easily surmise the intentions of the ancient Yu clan. As Yi Qingtang mused worriedly, there was finally some news regarding the Jiang family. Yi Qingtang hurried over. Holy Lord, the ancient Yu clan has destroyed several more ancient clans. We also found out that the ancient Yu clan is trying to seek out the whereabouts of the domain monarch. Several Jiang family hideouts were attacked in sequence. It looks like the ancient Yu clan has yet to obtain the spirit of chaos fragment belonging to the domain monarch. Chapter 1943, Hostage, 1. Enchanting heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing the report. No one had seen the bodies of Jiang Lang and his wife, so perhaps they managed to escape with the domain monarch. However, it was somewhat strange. According to the ancient clan folks, the Jiang family had managed to keep their hideouts a secret. Even their informants only found out about them after the ancient Yu clan raided them. Enchanting had not heard anyone mention those hideouts before either. Those hideouts must have been a highly classified secret. So how did the ancient Yu clan know of them? Oh yes, Holy Lord, there are a few more ancient clans who wish to seek protection under you. They are waiting for you outside the temple. One of the ancient clan leaders spoke up. Enchanting was already used to this. The stream of ancient clan folks who had come seeking protection had been relentless in recent days. Silent acquiescence was acceptance. Those ancient clan leaders immediately led their men into the Temple of Shadows. But compared to the first wave of clan members, these folks appeared exceptionally wretched and pathetic. Everyone's spirits appeared to have suffered significantly. Our humble greetings, Holy Lord. The clan leaders stepped forward and bowed. Their faces looked haggard and fatigued. Upon seeing those ancient clan leaders, the expressions of the 8 tribe leaders shifted. Isn't that the leader of the Chinua clan? How did you manage to find time out of your busy schedule to come to pay a visit to our Temple of Shadows? The Goblin tribe leader raised his brows in sarcasm. His comment made the clan leader very awkward and sheepish. There had been some conflicts between the Chinua clan and the Goblin tribe earlier on. As such, it wasn't surprising that the Goblin tribe leader had always hated the Chinua clan. Previously, when the various ancient clans had come seeking protection, the Chinua clan had publicly claimed that they would never abide by the Temple of Shadows. But now, the Chinua clan had come running to the Temple of Shadows for protection like a dog with its tail between its legs. The Chinua clan leader smiled bitterly after being ridiculed, but could not find any reason to retort. He gazed up at Enchanting, sitting high up on her throne. Holy Lord, I was too arrogant. After knowing the culprit was the ancient Yu clan, I thought I could arrange for my people to flee and hide beforehand, but I never expected the ancient Yu clan to be so vicious. They pursued us until we had nowhere to run or hide. Along with a number of other ancient clans in the mainland, the Chinua clan did not seek protection under the Temple of Shadows. Their leader thought they could flee with their people and hide out until it was safe. They never expected the ancient Yu clan to be so cruel. They slaughtered anyone who had any sort of connection to the Chinua clan. The ancient Yu clan pursued after them relentlessly, capturing their loved ones and holding them hostage. Holy Lord, they have threatened to kill off every single person they have captured if we don't show up in 5 days. The viciousness of the ancient Yu clan is beyond belief. Enchanting sighed inwardly at the words of the Chinua clan leader. She knew better than anyone else how vicious the ancient Yu clan could be. Countless living creatures in the first mainland had perished because of them. It's not just us. Even some members of the Jiang family have been captured by the ancient Yu clan. Who? Enchanting's heart quivered on hearing the words Jiang family, but she had to maintain her neutral expression. I believe they are the close family of the domain monarch. The ancient Yu clan already announced that if the domain monarch doesn't show up in 5 days, they will publicly execute those captured people from the Jiang family. Having experienced the persecution by the ancient Yu clan, the other ancient clan members were no longer surprised by the cruel methods employed. Chapter 1944, Hostage, 2. The ancient Yu clan was forcing the ancient clans to reveal themselves. Although Ming Di had killed off those 2 youths, the ancient Yu clan did not slow down their massacre. Several other exemplary youths had appeared during this period of time. Like the first 2, they were all very young but extremely powerful. Everyone was shocked and intimidated by this display of the ancient Yu clan's might. No one knew just how many more such formidable youths the ancient Yu clan had. In the entire mainland, only the Temple of Shadows could stand up against that clan. Those first few ancient clans who had sought protection under the Temple of Shadows couldn't help feeling relieved that they took such quick action. They managed to lead their people to the Temple of Shadows before the ancient Yu clan went on their killing spree. Otherwise, they would probably end up like the Qinhua clan, with a large portion of their own people being held hostage to force them to emerge. If they didn't turn up, those people would die horrible deaths. If they did, with their current capabilities, they would be just like lambs sent for slaughter. Yi Qingtang's heart sank on hearing their discussion. She had yet to find out the whereabouts of Jiang Lang and his wife. The thing that worried her the most was the two of them falling into the hands of the ancient Yu clan. First, she had to confirm if Jiang Lang and his wife were among the hostages. In addition, she had to make use of this chance to thoroughly investigate the current power of the ancient Yu clan. Even as Yi Qingtang soothed over the rising emotions of the ancient clan folks, she couldn't help worrying over the hostages held by the ancient Yu clan. As no one could tell her if Jiang Lang and his wife were among the hostages, the only way was to personally go over to take a look. There was no time like the present. Yi Qingtang decided to investigate that very night with Ming Di. After knowing Yi Qingtang's plans, the other ancient clan folks requested to go along with her, so that they could help her if required. How could Yi Qingtang not see through to their true intentions? They were just worried that without Ming Di and her around, there would be no one strong enough to protect the Temple of Shadows. In other words, they were only scared of death. Yi Qingtang knew that they would find all sorts of excuses to tag along even if she objected to their request now. By then, things might get messy and she might accidentally expose her true identity. As a result, she granted her approval on the condition that they followed her instructions to a T. The various ancient clans had no objections to that at all. Those few ancient clans who had just arrived, including the Qinhua clan, also chose to tag along despite having had no time to rest. With Yi Qingtang and Ming Di around, they finally had some hope of rescuing their own people. After all, with their lack of abilities, there was no way they would dare to make any moves on their own. Somewhere in a canyon situated in the territory of the ancient Yu clan, two ancient Yu clan sentries were guarding the entrance. Several sizable metal cages were placed close by. The cages were crammed full of haggard and despondent-looking prisoners, who were wearing the uniforms of the various ancient clans. The family emblems which had once brought them great honor had now become the reason behind their wretched state. It was dawn. The sky started to brighten and a chilly wind blew into the valley. Exposed to the elements, the bone-chilling wind blew into the cages, making the prisoners shiver from the cold. Most of them had suffered severe injuries. Their clothes were splattered with blood stains, but none of their wounds had received any treatment. Ravaged by the howling winds, their life energy started to drain bit by bit as time went by. Chapter 1945, Hostage 3. Death could claim any one of those prisoners at any time. With their grave injuries, there were already many dead bodies collapsed on the floor of the metal cages. As the weather had been rather hot and humid the past few days, the corpses had already started to rot. Squeezed in the cages with the dead bodies, the survivors had to endure the overwhelming stench of decay. The shadow of death shrouded the hearts of everyone. They watched as their own people died, knowing that it would soon be their fate. Just months ago, these people were the much-admired and respected elite of the ancient clans. But now, they were just a bunch of livestock squeezed in a metal cage with their dead companions. Despondence was written on the faces of nearly everyone inside. Any initial hope in their eyes had already been gradually eroded by despair. As the ancient Yu clan continued on their path of destruction, every prisoner knew that it was a one-way road to hell for anyone captured. No one would come to rescue them. It would be a suicidal mission. They had already been abandoned by the rest of the world. The ancient Yu clan sentries at the entrance completely disregarded those imprisoned ancient clan folks. In their eyes, they were no different from a bunch of rotting corpses, clinging pathetically on to their last breath. Instead, the sentries were on high alert for anyone who might try to rescue the prisoners. As Enchanting led her group to the canyon, they stuck closely to the side of a steep rock face to keep themselves from sight. It wasn't difficult to spot the metal cages from afar, as well as the completely disheartened hostages trapped within. Looking at the wretched state of their own people, the eyes of those clans who had suffered under the ancient Yu clan, all turned red like raging beasts. The ancient Yu clan is so despicable. We should just fight them to the death. One of the ancient clan elders gritted his teeth. They might have been able to quietly endure their loss if they hadn't personally witnessed those prisoners. But now that they had seen the hostages, it was near impossible to turn their backs on them. Enchanting narrowed her eyes as she surveyed the prisoners. She then shot the 8 tribe leaders a discreet look, indicating that they should hold back the ancient clan folks. The ancient Yu clan had boldly left those hostages out in plain view, precisely because they wanted to provoke the rage of the other clan members and make them act impulsively. Now was not the time to show how loyal one was. If they just charged in now, they would just end up being caught in the trap set by the ancient Yu clan. Luckily the ancient clan folk still had some common sense. They knew that they still had to rely on Enchanting and Mingdi, and didn't let their emotions blind their actions. Enchanting surveyed the prisoners inside the cages, trying to see if there was anyone from the Jiang family. Soon enough, she noticed several familiar figures inside one of the cages. As she squinted her eyes to look closer, Enchanting saw 3 familiar-looking females squeezed in that metal cage. Wasn't that Yi Sun and Jiang Qin? Apart from them, Enchanting didn't see anyone else from the Jiang family. At this, Enchanting heaved a sigh of relief. Enchanting didn't care if it were only these 3 who were captured. Even if the ancient Yu clan didn't take Yu's life, it was just a matter of time before Enchanting personally killed her. But just as Enchanting relaxed, she noticed one of the patrolling sentries discreetly drop a cloth pouch into Yu's cage as he passed by them. Chapter 1946, Brutes. 1. There were some other grim-faced people in the same cage as Yu and the other 2. Enchanting did not recognize any of those people, but she did notice that after the cloth pouch was passed inside, it was quickly blocked from view by those people. From her high vantage point, it was pure coincidence that she happened to see what happened. After those people blocked the cloth pouch from sight, Yu and the other 2 immediately opened the pouch and took out some food from it. Then they quickly gobbled it all up. Strange. No one cared if any one of the hostages were near death. None of the ancient Yu clan folks displayed the slightest bit of pity or mercy. So why would the ancient Yu clan sentry suddenly be so kind as to give food to Yu and the others? Enchanting took a closer look and discovered that although Yu and the other 2 were injured and looked very haggard, there was no despair in their eyes. That type of hopelessness was difficult to feign. In addition, there were no corpses inside their cage. Apart from Yu and the other 2 females, the other people inside the cage were youths in their early teens. Does that cage contain any of your people? Enchanting pointed toward Yu's cage. The ancient clan members all thought that Enchanting was going to save the hostages. They immediately leaned forward to try and identify the people. But after studying the prisoners for some time, none of the ancient clan members could recognize any one of those youths at all. It was very strange. The leaders and elders could not identify those youths even though they were garbed in the uniforms of the ancient clans. Enchanting smelled a rat. Just as Enchanting was pondering what kind of trick the ancient Yu clan was up to, several figures suddenly appeared at the entrance of the canyon. Glancing at the group, Enchanting noticed the figure at the front. Domain Monarch. How is that possible? Why did he come? One of the ancient clan elders instantly recognized the wild-haired Domain Monarch. It was the long-missing Domain Monarch. Yi Qingtang's eyes narrowed the moment she saw the Domain Monarch. Her heart nearly came to a stop when she saw the people tagging along behind. Jiang Sun. Jiang Lang. The sentries immediately sounded the signal when they saw the Domain Monarch. The faces of the trio were all tensed up as if prepared to go into battle. Suddenly, a wild wind started up as dust and sand swirled beneath the hands of the Domain Monarch. The sentries were sent flying away by the wild gusts of wind. Jiang Sun and Jiang Lang took this opportunity to charge into the canyon to locate members of the Jiang family. Have those Jiang family people gone mad? They are just throwing themselves into a trap. They've been tricked. The ancient clan members never expected the Domain Monarch to really come forth to save his own people. They really believed the Domain Monarch must have gone mad. The Jiang family has always valued the family above all. But this time, the Domain Monarch really shouldn't have come. A large number of ancient clan folks had been captured, but no one dared to charge in to rescue them. But now, they watched as the Jiang family risked everything to save their own people. Although this was akin to bashing one's head against a hard rock, this kind of courage was also rather admirable. The ancient clan members expressed a combination of regret and respect. Yi Qingtang was the only one who felt both shock and joy upon seeing Jiang Lang and Jiang Sun. She was happy they were still alive but shocked that they were throwing their lives away now. And all just to save those three. Holy Lord, now that the Jiang family has arrived, should we take this opportunity when the two clans are fighting to? One of the ancient clan leaders hinted that they should take advantage of the scuffle to save their own people. Yi Qingtang didn't respond. Instead, she kept her eyes fixed upon Jiang Lang and the others. Chapter 1947, Brutes, 2, Ming Di, Yi Qingtang said softly. Wait for my signal. Yi Qingtang gritted her teeth. She could ignore it if they had been anyone else, but she had to save Jiang Lang and Jiang Sun. She couldn't watch the two who treated her like their own family member die so cruelly in the hands of the ancient Yu clan. Finally, Ming Di's eyes were burning, anticipating a huge fight. The ancient clans all thought that Yi Qingtang was finally going to attack the ancient Yu clan, and they all perked up. There were only a few soldiers from the ancient Yu clan there. Jiang Sun and Jiang Lang quickly found Yi Yu and the rest of them. And Jiang Qin, who was looking extremely pathetic, cried out when she saw Jiang Sun surging forward. Yi Yu followed closely behind Jiang Qin. While fighting against the ancient Yu clan soldiers, Jiang Sun said, "How are your injuries? Are there any other members from the Jiang family here?" They had not anticipated the attack at all, so had no idea how many members of the Jiang family were still alive. "It's just a few of us left. Please get us out of here," Jiang Qin pleaded. Jiang Sun's lips twisted. Even though she didn't like Jiang Qin and Yi Yu, they were still family after all. Jiang Sun broke their chains with one swing of her sword and let Jiang Qin and the rest out. "Brothers of different clans, let's go." Jiang Sun's gaze swept across the other youths in the cages. Without thinking much of it, he prepared to leave with Jiang Qin and Yi Yu. She dragged them along, one in each hand, and ran. Yi Sun could only follow behind them, panting heavily. But just as they grabbed Yi Yu and Jiang Qin and Yi Yu's eyes suddenly flashed fiercely as they attacked the defenseless Jiang Sun and Jiang Lang from behind. Before they could even react, all they saw was black and they collapsed. "Grandfather! Father!" The Domain Monarch was still dealing with the ancient Yu clan soldiers at the entrance when he suddenly heard two cries. He lifted his eyes only to see a group of ancient Yu clan soldiers dragging Jiang Qin and Yi Yu out. Even Jiang Sun and Jiang Lang, whom he had sent to rescue them, were being dragged out as well. The two of them seemed to have been knocked out and did not stir at all. The knives of the soldiers were on their necks. Domain Monarch, your loved ones are in our hands. I might let them go if you hand over your Spirit of Chaos fragment obediently. A warden from the ancient Yu clan walked out slowly. Both his hands were behind his back and he was looking at the solemn Domain Monarch with arrogance. Seeing the four of them captured, the Domain Monarch's eyes narrowed and flashed coldly. His expression was extremely dark. He rarely had time for his family since he had always been obsessed with honing his martial arts. Now that the Jiang family was on the verge of extinction, he was going to protect the remaining members even if it cost his life. The Spirit of Chaos fragment is with me. Let them go and I will become your hostage. I'll hand you the fragment once I know they are safe, the Domain Monarch said. Do you think you are in a position to negotiate with us now? The ancient Yu clan warden let out of a bark of contemptuous laughter, as though the Domain Monarch was nothing to him. Chapter 1948, Betrayal, 1, Domain Monarch, it's a different time now. With your current strength, what right do you have to negotiate with the ancient Yu clan? Even I can kill you easily. I'm only asking you to hand it over to save you some dignity. The Domain Monarch narrowed his eyes. He took out a small fragment from his chest and pinched it in his hand. The warden's eyes lit up as he saw the fragment. Not a single fragment of the Spirit of Chaos can be missing. Isn't obtaining all the fragments the reason you've been wiping out all the ancient clans? I'm going to destroy it if you don't listen to me. Then you will never be able to fulfill your wishes in this lifetime, the Domain Monarch said coldly. The warden narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. All right, he'll save you a bit of your dignity and let them go then. With that, Yi Yu and the rest were released on the spot. Yi Yu and Jiang Qin exchanged a look with the warden before replacing their expressions with worry and picking up the unconscious Jiang Sun and Jiang Lang. They rushed over to the Domain Monarch's side. Domain Monarch, you should hand the fragment over now, the warden said coldly. Seeing Yi Yu and the rest of them walk behind him, he breathed in silently and enveloped them in his power. Go now. The Domain Monarch shouted fiercely as the ball of light surrounding them flew up into the sky. You want to leave? It's not going to be that easy. The warden laughed coldly. As he said that, a figure flew out from behind him. The Domain Monarch didn't even have time to see what the figure looked like before a fierce attack came at him like thunder. He quickly retaliated but was still thrown back a few meters. A handsome youth stood in front of the Domain Monarch. Domain Monarch, the youth laughed lightly. You're from the Nanlin family. The Domain Monarch looked strangely at the Nanlin family clothes the youth was wearing. The youth lifted his eyes slightly and ripped off the disguise he was in. What do you mean Nanlin family? The warden doesn't find this troublesome at all, does he? Why do we need such complicated antics to deal with trash like you? We should just kill you all. The Domain Monarch suddenly understood why he was in those clothes. All he wanted to do right now was to make sure Jiang Sun and the rest left safely. He raised his hand and threw the Spirit of Chaos fragment out. Eyes flashing, the youth leaped over to catch it. The Domain Monarch seized this opportunity to leave with the people in the ball of light. The youth immediately felt something off as he clutched the fragment with some strength. This fragment is fake. The warden's eyes turned cold. He let out a cold laugh as he looked at the fleeing Domain Monarch. Just as he thought he could get away with the people in the ball of light, Jiang Qin gritted her teeth, the hand in her sleeve hesitating for a while. But just as she was hesitating, Yi Yu took advantage of the Domain Monarch's lack of attention and stabbed him in the back with a dagger. Ugh! In great pain, the domain monarch looked at his granddaughter in disbelief. A sudden pain ripped through his chest from the wound, disrupting his power, and they fell from the sky. Yi Yu, the domain monarch's eyes widened at the unexpected attack by Yi Yu. Chapter 1949, Betrayal, 2. He had planned everything perfectly. But the only thing he failed to account for was his very own granddaughter betraying him. Ha! Domain monarch, you didn't expect this, right? He who knows when to move with the times is a wise man. Your granddaughter and daughter have been smart enough to switch to the winning side. You are the only one who dared to use a fake fragment to try and fool us. The warden gave a cold laugh. The entire scene was witnessed by Yi Qingtang and the rest, who were still hiding. What's wrong with those two Jiang family women? How could they do this to their own people? Several ancient clan leaders widened their eyes in disbelief. They even suspected that their eyes and ears must be deceiving them. Doomed. I am afraid the domain monarch is doomed this time. The crowd shook their heads and lamented the betrayal of the domain monarch by his own family. They also felt regretful that the Jiang family failed to escape their demise in the end. The domain monarch had been engaged with his enemies and didn't know what happened within the canyon. But Yi Qingtang and her group saw everything from their high vantage point. Even those battle-worn ancient clan leaders never expected there to be two traitors within the Jiang family. Hidden within her sleeves, Yi Qingtang's fists were tightly clenched. She felt a desperate urge to tear Yi Yu apart when she witnessed her sneak attack against Zhang Lang. How could Yi Yu be so heartless as to attack her very own family members? Yi Yu, you are really something. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. Taking out a golden mask from her space ring, she put it on. It was the mask left behind by the Holy Lord of Shadows. Ming Di. A vicious glint flashed across Ming Di's blood-red eyes when he heard Yi Qingtang's voice. The massacre was about to begin. A caustic smile appeared on the ancient Yu clan youth when he saw the injured domain monarch. I advise you not to move about. That blade is poisoned, and the more you struggle, the faster the venom will spread. If you continue being disobedient, I will have to handicap your arms and legs. See if you can still struggle then. The youth raised his hand and reached toward the domain monarch's arms. The domain monarch took a deep breath. He knew he was powerless to defend himself now and had resigned himself to death. But just as the domain monarch had given up all hope, a booming dragon's roar rang out. In the next second, a massive shadow fell over the crowd. A gigantic demon dragon was flying toward them, and a slender figure was riding upon that beast. It was a woman wearing a golden mask. Is that? The warden frowned at the sight of the demon dragon and woman. For a second there, he had no idea how to react. But the eyes of the domain monarch flashed when he saw the demon dragon. Temple of Shadows. Demon Dragon Ming Di. So the one riding upon that dragon was. With a loud crash, Ming Di landed somewhere outside the canyon. The warden finally snapped out of his trance, suddenly realizing who that gold-masked woman on that dragon might be. The warden has seen that golden mask in a portrait before. It was an emperor-level artifact and belonged to the Holy Lord of Shadows. Why was the Holy Lord of Shadows here? Yi Qingtang stood upon Ming Di's back as she surveyed the people before her. A murderous glint surfaced in her eyes when she saw the pale-faced domain monarch, the unconscious Jiang Lang and the others. But she was well aware that now was not the time to face the ancient Yu clan head-on. Nevertheless, no matter what, she had to bring those people away with her today. Yi Qingtang had Ming Di pick up those people before turning to flee the scene. Chapter 1950, Betrayal, 3. Although Ming Di had completely defeated those first two ancient Yu clan youths, they were now in the enemy's territory and Enchanting was not confident in winning. It was likely that the ancient Yu clan might have some hidden trump card. The ancient Yu clan warden was stunned. What was going on? Why did the Holy Lord suddenly arrive to rescue the Jiang family members? Don't let them flee. The warden roared. Although the elders had instructed them not to engage the Temple of Shadows for the moment, the Holy Lord had come all this way just to snatch their target. How could they endure such an insult? At the warden's command, the youth gave chase. Yo, that punk dares to chase after us. Ming Di noted the youth pursuing them. He immediately put Enchanting and the others down before turning around to battle him. The domain monarch was astounded. He stared at Enchanting, who was still wearing the golden mask. He did not remember any connections between the Jiang family and the Temple of Shadows. Why would the Holy Lord? But there was no time for the domain monarch to ask further questions. He gazed worriedly at Ming Di, who was getting ready to face their enemy. Ming Di landed right in front of the youth, blocking his way. You are just a stupid demon dragon. Get out of my way or I will skin you alive. The youth snorted impatiently. Narrowing its eyes, Ming Di swung its tail into that arrogant youth, turning him into a mass of pulverized flesh. Skin me alive. So scary, Ming Di grinned at the messy remains of the youth. Domain Monarch was dumbfounded by the entire scene. Ah! This Ming Di was indeed as powerful as the legends described. Before the Domain Monarch could fully comprehend it all, the hidden ancient clan members all rushed out. They were full of confidence after witnessing Ming Di's kill. The Domain Monarch stared at the sudden appearance of those ancient clan members, all of whom looked so familiar. When did this bunch of people ally themselves with the Temple of Shadows? The Holy Lord is great. It was right of you to teach that ancient Yu clan a lesson. The ancient clan folks happily praised Enchanting's wonderful accomplishment. You never expected there to be so many people hidden on the outside. All the hairs at the back of her neck stood up when she saw that massive demon dragon smash the ancient Yu clan youth to certain death. It must be pointed out that Yu had personally witnessed just how powerful that youth was. He could wipe out an entire ancient clan all by himself. But he had been turned into meat paste with just the swing of a tail. Yu shuddered. Together, she and Jiang Qin hurried back to the ancient Yu clan camp. But Enchanting immediately noticed their attempt to flee. Reaching out, she grabbed those two and hauled them back, tossing them by the feet of the Domain Monarch. However, no one had the time to think of how to deal with them now. The warden remained impassive as he watched that youth die. He just narrowed his eyes. The Temple of Shadows is indeed powerful. But since you guys insisted on coming to meet your deaths, don't blame us for being merciless. Right after the warden spoke, several youths appeared before him. Enchanting scanned those youths and realized that all of them possessed an aura even stronger than those first three killed by Ming Di. As expected, the ancient Yu clan still possessed quite a number of such formidable youths. Ming Di, Enchanting said. Ha, understood. The battle-hungry blood in Ming Di's body started to churn and rage. It turned toward those youths and taunted, "Oi, don't come one by one. All of you can attack me at the same time." Chapter 1951, Old Acquaintance, 1. Those youths immediately sprang forth the moment Ming Di uttered those words. In the blink of an eye, flashing beams of light and loud booms resonated through the air. The eyes of the Domain Monarch widened as he watched Ming Di take on several ancient Yu clan youths at the same time. He had heard rumors of how powerful the Temple of Shadows Ming Di was. But the dragon had vanished without a trace for so many years. He never expected that. Even under the united attack by those youths, Ming Di still had the clear upper hand. With just a swish of his massive dragon's tail, none of the youths could withstand the impact. Some managed to survive, but only barely with serious injuries. Others were instantly killed on impact, following in the footsteps of that earlier youth. The ancient Yu clan warden had been full of confidence but was now frowning as he witnessed Ming Di's slaughter. Although these youths were not the most powerful of their batch, they still possessed enough power to destroy an entire ancient clan on their own. He had thought with them attacking in a group, it should be no problem for the youths to handle that demon dragon. But the Temple of Shadows Ming Di was really that powerful. He instinctively glanced at Enchanting, who had remained by the sidelines the entire time. He narrowed his eyes. "You guys, go to the Holy Spirit Hall now." The warden commanded the sentries as he witnessed the humiliating defeat of those youths. He refused to believe that this Ming Di was totally undefeatable. The sight of Ming Di's great killing spree was a boon to those ancient clan members. They cheered happily as Ming Di helped them dish out some form of revenge. Enchanting was the only one who remained impassive under her mask. She only continued to observe those youths carefully. It appeared that Ming Di was winning easily, but Enchanting also realized that not all of the youths were the same. Most of the youths were on the same level as their dead predecessors. But a couple of them were able to stand up again after being swiped by Ming Di's tail. The abilities of those two youths were far above the rest. But just seconds later, Ming Di managed to defeat the remaining youths, who collapsed dead to the ground. Just as the ancient clan folks wanted to cheer and take this opportunity to save their own people, several figures dashed out from the canyon. Before the ancient clan people could see who they were, loud booms echoed through the air. 3 identical-looking youths had appeared in front of Ming Di. More have come to seek their deaths. Ming Di tilted his head and stared at those 3 youths. The youths didn't waste time talking to Ming Di. They just lunged forward. Ming Di swung his tail again, but those 3 youths managed to dodge it. They leaped away, completely unharmed. These 3 guys seemed to be even stronger than those before them. The eyes of the Nanlin clan leader widened in disbelief. The earlier ancient Yu clan youths were already powerful beyond comprehension. No one imagined that the clan had even more powerful fighters. The hearts of everyone thumped heavily with apprehension. Previously, Ming Di had been able to deal crushing defeats to the ancient Yu clan. But these new youths were much faster and more powerful than those before them. Faced with 3 of them on his own, it was not certain if Ming Di could still defeat them. Chapter 1952, Old Acquaintance, 2. Although he could still handle them, he no longer had an absolute advantage. The power held by the ancient Yu clan was indeed unfathomable. Still on the sidelines, Enchanting observed Ming Di battling those 3 youths. They had perfect coordination, and although Ming Di was still more powerful than them, he could not destroy all of them in one go. Enchanting couldn't help feeling somewhat worried. Meanwhile, the ancient Yu clan warden didn't look too good either. He had expected the first batch of youths to fail. After all, the disparity between Ming Di and them was too wide. But these 3 youths were considered among the top in their batch. And yet, they were unable to handle Ming Di. The warden's face turned grim and he shot a discreet look at the sentry beside him. He uttered some commands in a low voice and the sentry immediately turned and ran into the canyon. Inside the canyon, a white-haired elder was standing inside a pavilion. A row of spirit pearls was arranged before him, shimmering softly. Some of those spirit pearls were already cracked. But there were so many spirit pearls that barely anyone would notice those cracks. Elder, the Temple of Shadows Ming Di is too powerful. The 3 brothers are unable to handle him either, the sentry hurried over with his report. The elder had his hands clasped behind his back. He maintained his neutral expression. Useless garbage, the elder said mildly, all the while keeping his eyes fixed upon the spirit pearls. As the elder spoke, cracks suddenly appeared in 3 of the spirit pearls in the front row. The elder narrowed his eyes. Those 3 youths had been killed by Ming Di. The Temple of Shadows Ming Di has indeed lived up to his reputation. The elder gave a cold laugh. The power of that demon dragon, who had once fought alongside the Holy Lord of Shadows, was enough to dominate the entire mainland. Nevertheless. The sentry looked somewhat worried. The elder lifted his hand and pointed at the foremost spirit pearl. There's no need to mess around with the Temple of Shadows any longer. We will send him. The sentry shuddered when he saw which spirit pearl the elder was pointing at. But, that guy, before the sentry could finish his sentence, the elder shot him a look. The sentry broke out in cold sweat and didn't dare to utter another word. He immediately turned and went to carry out his orders. Outside the canyon, Ming Di gazed down at the 3 youths collapsed beneath his feet. But the arrogant light in his eyes had faded a little. Indeed, he had won, but it was a tough win. The powers of those 3 youths were exemplary and they had perfect coordination and camaraderie. Even Ming Di had found it somewhat challenging to defeat them. The ancient clan folks heaved a sigh of relief after witnessing the defeat of those 3 youths. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that there could be youths who were that powerful in this world. The amount of power possessed seemed beyond the bounds of the first domain. But just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief, a horse carriage came rolling out of the canyon. The carriage appeared very dense and heavy. It was entirely black and bound all over with chains, which made clinking sounds the entire way. Everyone instantly went on high alert again at the sight of that horse carriage. Although the carriage was still quite some distance away, they could already feel a powerful aura radiating from it. Even from that distance, they were already finding it difficult to breathe from that oppressive aura. Chapter 1953, Old Acquaintance, 3. Even the eyes of the ancient Yu clan's warden widened in shock at the sight of that carriage. The elder had chosen to let them out. This is the intention of the elder. The warden looked at the sentry in front of the carriage. The guard nodded quietly. For a moment, the warden looked rather conflicted. Enchanting narrowed her eyes at the sight of that horse carriage. Those 3 youths had already given Ming Di a good challenge. Who knew what kind of horrific power the ancient Yu clan was unleashing now? Upon closer inspection, Enchanting also noticed that the design of the carriage was rather strange. Although it looked like a horse carriage, it also looked like a mobile prison. The chains binding the carriage were carved with all sorts of strange-looking scriptures. It was almost as if they were trying to suppress something. The ancient Yu clan warden hesitated a moment longer before finally nodding his head. The carriage came to a stop at the entrance of the canyon, directly facing Ming Di. Ming Di narrowed its eyes at the carriage. It could already feel that the aura radiating from that carriage was completely different from those earlier youths. This aura was oppressive-suffocatingly powerful. With a loud crash, the chains binding the horse carriage broke. The thick chains started to fall onto the floor, and a dense smog seeped out of the cracks in the carriage. The smog permeated the air, drawing up layers of dirt from the ground. It surged toward the crowd with tremendous impact. What the hell is in that horse carriage? As the smog engulfed them, one of the ancient clan leaders felt like his blood had nearly hardened from the oppressive aura. What's there to be afraid of? We have Ming Di and the Holy Lord of Shadows on our side. We can handle any monster the ancient Yu clan sets upon us. Quite a number of them had the utmost faith in the Holy Lord's powers, even though it was blind faith. Enchanting was speechless after hearing those words. Indeed, if she was the true Holy Lord of Shadows, there wasn't anything to be afraid of. But she wasn't. A paragon-level practitioner might be considered great in central mainland. But with little Yu Yun's spiritual abode, Yi Qingtang had no way of guessing just how powerful the ancient Yu clan had become. This encounter would be a direct way to test just how powerful the ancient Yu clan had grown. Clink. The final chain binding the carriage soon fell to the ground. Everyone was holding their breath in apprehension. They stared unwaveringly at the carriage for any signs of movement. The horse carriage remained completely still. The person inside didn't emit a single sound. Ming Di narrowed his eyes dangerously. Faced with this powerful practitioner, his dragon scales had taken on a subtle blood-red sheen. Boom! Before anyone could see what had happened, a slim figure suddenly burst out of the carriage and charged ferociously toward Ming Di. In the blink of an eye, Ming Di and that black figure were already engaged in a great scuffle. Loud booms echoed through the air as both sides moved at lightning speed. No one at present could even see what was happening. Surrounding cliffs started to crack and shattered rocks flew everywhere. As the sides of the canyon kept absorbing wave after wave of impactful blows, countless pieces of shattered rocks tumbled all over. The earth beneath everyone's feet seemed about to rupture any time, to the point that long, jagged cracks had already appeared. Chapter 1954, Old Acquaintance. 4. What's going on? What kind of monster is that? The ancient clan folks were shocked. They could still see what was going on in Ming Di's earlier fights. But for this one, they could not even catch a glimpse of Ming Di and that ancient Yu clan monster. They could only feel shockwaves surging toward them. Yi Qingtang had focused all her energy into her eyes, but was still unable to keep up with the speed of the fight. Just as the battle waged on, an earth-shattering boom sounded and two black figures flew straight up into the sky. Up in the air, a dazzling light burst out, blinding everyone. In the very next second, the two black figures parted, each standing on one side as they floated in the air. At this point, everyone finally managed to see the two figures more clearly. The massive Ming Di covered the sky, its huge wings spread across the air. But now there was a large wound on Ming Di's body. The wound was not deep, but it was still a major blow to everyone below. What was going on? The ancient Yu clan monster had been able to injure Ming Di. Was this some kind of joke? Everyone immediately turned toward the black figure who managed to injure Ming Di. The crowd was stunned by the sight. Floating up in the air, a young child who looked to be only 5 or 6 years old was standing opposite Ming Di. The child was petite with an exceptionally exquisite little face. But those eyes looked like two emotionless pits, staring steadfastly at the aggressively ferocious Ming Di. That's just a kid. The ancient clan folks widened their eyes in disbelief. Those earlier youths had already been powerful beyond their imaginations. But this figure, who was even more powerful than Ming Di, was just a little kid. Everyone was dazed. No one noticed that Yi Qingtang had given a violent tremble the moment the kid appeared. Little Luo Shui. Yi Qingtang widened her eyes in shock. The petite figure floating in mid-air was little Luo Shui, who had been born together with little Yu Yun in First Mainland back then. That year, the ancient Yu clan had gone on a killing spree across the First Mainland. Yi Qingtang had died fighting and failed to get little Yu Yun back. Little Luo Shui, who had been with little Yu Yun, had also been taken away by the ancient Yu clan. Yi Qingtang had come to Central Mainland to get little Yu Yun and little Luo Shui back, so that she could save all life on First Mainland. But she never dreamed that she would see little Luo Shui under such circumstances. Having been apart for so long, little Luo Shui no longer looked familiar to Yi Qingtang. It was still that same face, but little Luo Shui seemed to have grown up somewhat. The thing that felt the most unfamiliar were little Luo Shui's eyes. There were no traces of warmth or emotion inside them. It was like all emotion had been cut out of little Luo Shui. How could this be? Yi Qingtang frowned deeply as she gazed at the floating little Luo Shui. What did the ancient Yu clan do to little Luo Shui? How did little Luo Shui become like this? A surge of anger rose in Yi Qingtang's heart. She still remembered those two little fellows tagging alongside her all day and night when she was in First Mainland. But now, little Luo Shui had turned into this. Meanwhile, she had no idea where little Yu Yun was. The former Luo Shui Divine King. Chapter 1955, Old Acquaintance, 5, Yi Qingtang took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the murderous intent in her heart. Ancient Yu clan. Up in the air, Ming Di wore a grave expression. To those bystanders, it was just a short fight. But during that short period of time, Ming Di and little Luo Shui had exchanged over 100 moves. During that exchange, Ming Di could clearly feel the unbelievable power of that kid. It was way above that of those previous youths. Kid, you are indeed something. What's your name? Ming Di asked in a cold voice. Meanwhile, little Luo Shui was completely unresponsive. He continued to stare at Ming Di with empty eyes as if he was looking at his prey. When Yi Qingtang observed Ming Di's actions, her heart sank. Ming Di would never deign to speak to those he deemed weaker than himself. This was the first time Ming Di was trying to converse with his opponent. That meant Ming Di could not afford to underestimate little Luo Shui's powers. Yi Qingtang gazed over at the ancient Yu clan. She had no idea how many more monsters the ancient Yu clan had cultivated inside that deep canyon. Ming Di. Ming Di's eyes wavered the moment Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke. No one else noticed that a hint of wonder also flashed past little Luo Shui's eyes. But before that glimmer could turn into anything else, it was sucked into that emotionless dark pit. Let's go. Yi Qingtang suddenly gave the command to retreat. Ming Di was taken aback. The ancient clan folks were likewise dumbstruck. What was going on? The Holy Lord of Shadows wanted to retreat. Before the rest of the people could start to comprehend Yi Qingtang's order, Ming Di flew down and swept Yi Qingtang onto his back. Without any hesitation, he flew up into the sky. Trying to escape. The ancient Yu clan warden uttered coldly when he saw Yi Qingtang leaving. Ming Di suddenly opened his jaws and spewed out a torrent of black flames across everything. This is not the end. Yi Qingtang was standing upon Ming Di's back and staring at the unmoving little Luo Shui. Pain flashed across her eyes. At Yi Qingtang's command, Ming Di flew away into the distance. At that, the ancient clan folks also hurried away while the 8 tribe leaders brought the Jiang family members along with them in accordance with Yi Qingtang's orders. The warden was full of frustration as he stared after the departing crowd. He wanted to order little Luo Shui to pursue them. But little Luo Shui ignored his command. Instead, he hovered there, unmoving in the sky. Enough. An old, frail voice suddenly rang out from behind. The warden immediately turned and saw the elder walking over. A large group of youths were tagging along behind the elder. Elder, it seems such a waste to let them leave now. Shouldn't we take this opportunity to kill them all? The warden asked. A smirk appeared on the elder's face. It's not the right time. He lifted his eyes and looked at little Luo Shui. Luo Shui's condition is still unstable. With his current powers, he would be on par with Ming Di at best. And the true power behind the Temple of Shadows is the Holy Lord. We cannot be certain of victory if we engage them now. While little Luo Shui might be able to hold off Ming Di, they would need a lot more than that to handle the Holy Lord of Shadows. They would bide their time. Chapter 1956, Pledging Allegiance, 1. Many ancient clans remained in hiding throughout the central mainland. There was no great hurry for them to go into battle with the Temple of Shadows at this point. Tell the sacred ground of reflection not to let the Temple of Shadows rest easy. After we finish off the remaining powers in central mainland, we will go and deal with the Temple of Shadows, the elder instructed. The warden hesitated a moment before nodding in compliance. Understood. I will immediately contact the sacred ground of reflection. They now belong to the ancient Yu clan and will naturally do their best for us. Otherwise, we have no reason to keep them around. The sacred ground of reflection managed to avoid destruction as they did not have any spirit of chaos fragments. But they were also very astute and knew it was in their best interests to submit to the ancient Yu clan. With a curt nod, the elder turned and left without another word. Meanwhile, Enchanting and her group left the ancient Yu clan's territory and soon arrived back at the Temple of Shadows. Most of the ancient clan folks could not understand why Enchanting chose to suddenly retreat. Are you all fools? Didn't you see the ancient Yu clan leading a huge group of people over? If the Holy Lord had not wisely chosen to retreat, do you think you all would have escaped with your lives? Ming Di snorted. The crowd was shocked. Having stood some distance away, they could not see what was happening within the canyon. Even the thought alone made them break out in cold sweat. The ancient Yu clan was probably leading a group of youths who were all as diabolically powerful as the earlier ones. There was no need for Ming Di and the Holy Lord of Shadows to fear them, but the rest of ancient clan folks would likely all perish there. By then, Ming Di would be held up by that little monster, while the youths could split up with one group to distract Enchanting and the other group to destroy the rest of them. At this point, the crowd couldn't help feeling that Enchanting was indeed wise and had helped save all their lives. Little did they know that Enchanting was also trying to save her own life. Ming Di was the only one of them able to fight back. With the dragon being kept busy by little Luo Shui, the rest of them would definitely have died by the time the main ancient Yu clan group arrived. Ming Di, since you were able to see it, how many people did the ancient Yu clan have on their side? One of the ancient clan leaders asked. Too many to count. Several hundred at least. Several hundreds of those monsters. The ancient clan folks gasped. This is only one of the ancient Yu clan strongholds. Who knows how many more people they have in other places, the demon tribe leader pointed out. His words were the final straw that broke the camel's back. Everyone instantly felt hopelessly deflated. One youth was enough to destroy multiple ancient clans. Let alone hundreds and thousands of them, destroying the entire mainland would be a breeze. At that moment, everyone fell into the depths of despondency. They could not comprehend just how powerful their opponent was. It was no wonder the ancient Yu clan behaved so arrogantly. Holy Lord, we have no choice but to rely on the Temple of Shadows now. Please protect us. One of the ancient clan leaders immediately fell to his knees before Enchanting. Right in front of everyone, he took out his Spirit of Chaos fragment and offered it to Enchanting. Enchanting, I know I am no match for the ancient Yu clan. Even if I were to hang on to this Spirit of Chaos fragment, it would just be a matter of time before the ancient Yu clan took it from me. Holy Lord, please protect us. I am willing to offer this fragment to you if you will protect my clan, the leader stated in a hoarse voice. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.